Hello everybody, my name is Carlos and welcome back to another video. Today, in this one, is going to be another card analysis video, and in this one, it's going to be, is Mulcharmy Purulia actually good? Yeah, last week we did a card analysis video on Mulcharmy Fuwalos. If you want to watch that, I'll put in the link in the description down below. But this week we'll be covering the first ever Mulcharmy that got released in Yu-Gi-Oh! Mulcharmy Purulia. So yeah, in this video, I'll be covering the effect of Mulcharmy Purulia, cover the pros and cons with the card, and at the end of the video, I'll be giving you my final thoughts of if this card is actually good. So without further ado, let's get straight into the video. But before we can get into the video, I quickly want to show you the cost of Mulcharmy Purulia, because it's kind of an interesting thing I want to look at. So if we go down here, it's actually really cheap right now. It's actually at 40 bucks, which I know for a lot of you will probably be like, that's still an expensive card, but this card used to be like $80 to $100 a copy. So it dropping all the way down to 40 bucks is pretty insane. Ignore these copies. These are fucking Korean copies that should not be on TCG. It should be its own little thing, but ignore those. But yeah, 40 bucks is kind of the average of it right now. As you can see with this chart here, it was actually really expensive. It was like 60s, then went to 70s, and it even shot up to the peak around 80, 90 bucks. It was like closer to 100, I would say, as well, and then it just completely tanked off. Now, at the end of the video, when I give you my final thoughts on the card, I'll explain why this card is dropping in price when we get to the end of the video, so kind of just keep that in the back of your mind for this video. So yeah, the price is around 40 bucks right now for Purulia. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alrighty, now to cover the effect of Mulcharmy Purulia. So, Purulia is a level 4 water aqua effect monster with 100 attack and 600 defense, and the effect reads as follows. If you control no cards, quick effect, you can discard this card, apply these effects this turn. Each time your opponent normal or special summons a monster from the hand, immediately draw one card, and then once during the end phase, if the number of cards in your hand is more than the number of cards your opponent controls plus 6, you must randomly shuffle cards from your hand into the deck so the number in your hand equals to the number your opponent controls plus 6. You can only activate one other Mulcharmy monster effect the turn you activate this effect. So that is the effect of Mulcharmy Purulia. Now let's get into the pros. Alrighty, now on to the pros with Mulcharmy Purulia. So number one, it draws you a card. I mean, that's really, really good. Like, things like Pot of Greed are banned because it draws you 2 cards. Things like Maxi are banned because it draws every time your opponent special summons, right? Purulia is a little bit weird because it has to be from a specific location, but it does draw you a card, which is a very powerful effect in the game. So yeah, that's one of the advantages to it. Number two, it can force your opponent to play weird just because they don't want to give you that many draws. That might force your opponent to, like, okay, like let's say you're versing like the Rizal matchup, right? They can go, okay, you go Mulcharmy Purulia, like, fuck, okay, maybe they just normal summon an ice, special summon whatever, right, from the deck, gives you 1 draw, they just make a detonator and they pass to you. It forces them to not go like full combo. Like, sure, they still get to that detonator, which is still like somewhat of a problem, but you're no longer dealing with the duo drive with the cross and stuff like that. That gets them so much stuff, which is good for you. So basically what I mean by can force your opponent to play weird is they have to play it in such a way where they're playing it so weird that they can't go full combo. So it makes it where their end board isn't as optimal as they want it to be. So that's another advantage when it comes to Purulia. Like, think about it, if they don't start with X, or sorry, Ice, they have to go like X, you know, normal, or then special like a sword. That gives you 2 draws and they still only make a detonator and pass to you. So like, that's a really good thing about Purulia as well. And then number 3, can draw when your opponent normal summons. That's a really good thing because a lot of the Mulcharmy type effects like Maxi, Fuwalos, and even the new one, Meows, that comes out in Supreme Darkness, they only do it on the special summon. Now this one can do it on the normal. That makes sense because this one can do it like draws when something is summoned from the hand, which is nice, so it makes sense for the normal summon. But since pretty much every deck in the game is pretty much using their normal summon, you can pretty much guarantee a draw off of Purulia because you can at least guarantee that your opponent is going to normal summon at some point during their turn, even if they're not a deck that specifically goes off special summoning from hand all the time. So those are the 3 pros with Mulcharmy Purulia. Now let's get into the cons. Now on to the cons with Mulcharmy Purulia. So number 1, it's really bad going first. So this isn't a Mulcharmy Purulia problem. This is just kind of a Mulcharmy problem. All the Mulcharmies are kind of really bad going first, because they really are only specifically made to go second, because you have to control no cards to activate them. So it's really bad going first. It's kind of just a dead card going first, unless you're like playing something like exactly Rizal and it's a level 4 that you can just normal summon. But that's like pretty much it. It's really bad going first because you can't activate when you have cards on the field. So it's not something like Maxi where you can go full combo then just activate a Maxi and you're going to guarantee draws because your opponent's going to try to break through. Mulcharmies can't do that because you have to control no cards on the field. So really bad going first. Number 2, it's format dependent. So this is kind of the weird ones with Purulia and then Meowls, which I'll cover later this week. Is it's format dependent. Not every format's going to be playing into this card that hard. When you think about it, when Purulia initially released back in Infinite Forbidden, when Yugioh and Snake Eyes was kind of the power players, right? You can at least guarantee, like Snake Eyes are probably going to give you a couple draws off of Purulia. Yugioh is kind of the same way, where they're probably going to give you a couple draws off of Purulia because both decks kind of summon from hand all the time. So in that format, it was kind of actually really good. And even in like the last format, pre-crossover breakers, right? It was kind of one of those things like against Fire King Snake Eyes. Purulia just goes in super hard. And it was like one of those things like a lot of people consider main decking this card in that format, pre-crossover breaker format, like post-Rage, pre-crossover breakers. In that format, a lot of people were actually considering playing Purulia in the main deck because it was like very, very impactful. But in this format, it's not as good. Think about Malice is what they're never going to give you a draw off of this card because Malice has ways to make sure they never summon from hand, right? Like something like a Rizal, maybe they'll normal summon an Ice, make a Detonator pass, like I mentioned back in, like sure, making sure they don't get to the duo drive and get to cross is kind of nice, but Detonator is still Detonator. That's still a couple pops you're going to have to worry about, right? So it's like, it's very format dependent. It depends on what decks are the top decks in the format for this card to be playable, in my opinion. Number 3, it's not as impactful as you think it will be. So like I was saying, like back in the Yugioh Snake Eyes when this initially came out, maybe just in my experience, when I played Yugioh and someone Purelia'd me, I was like, I'll just give you a draw and I still will go full combo unless you hand trap me. If you hand trap me, sure, I'll give you another draw, but then I'll keep playing my game, right? So it's like one of those things, like, it's something like with Fuwalos, when he gets active, you're like, oh shit, that's going to be a problem. With Purulia, it feels like, you're like, okay, I might have to give you a draw or two, but I think I can still pretty much do my combo under the Purulia, which makes it where it's not as impactful, because something like with the Fuwalos, it makes it where like, okay, maybe your opponent will stop playing because they don't want to give you 20 million draws. With Purulia, because there's not that many decks that are summoning from the hand all the time, they can maybe only give you 1 or 2 draws and still go full combo. And like, sure, you'll have 7 cards in hand, but if they have full combo, it's going to still pretty much a hard task for you to break through the field. And then number 3, and I think the problem with it is you have to activate it straight away. This is not one of those Mulcharmies you can just keep in hand and wait until your opponent activates a card in hand to special summon, because not that many cards effects are not doing that in the game. Something like Fuwalos, you can wait in the main phase, wait for your opponent to activate effect that, like something like Ice, they normal summon Ice, activate effect. Then you can chain the Fuwalos there so that you can guarantee a draw. With Purulia, you can't do that because to get the full value, you kind of want to activate it straight away because it counts normal summons. A lot of people do lead their turns with normal summons, and since normal summons are summons that don't cause a chain, you can't chain Purulia to that. So that's kind of one of those cards you have to activate straight away. But if you activate it straight away, it gives your opponent some knowledge and they can somewhat play around that Purulia. So I think that's more of a con when it comes to Purulia. So yeah, those are the cons with Purulia. Now let's get into my thoughts on the card. So, is Mulcharmy Purulia worth buying at its current price? No, not really. And is it a good card? I should be answering that one as well. It's alright. It's like, it's not the best thing in the world, but it's not the most terrible thing as well. But considering how expensive this card is at 40 bucks right now, which, you know, considering where it used to be, it's a little bit cheaper than it used to be, but still pretty big price tag on it. No, I don't think it's really worth buying this card right now for a couple reasons. Number 1, it's actually not that good, this format. Like, yes, I was giving like the Rizal examples, and Rizal's is one of the best decks in the format, but if you verse like a Rizal Fiendsmith, maybe they'll give you a draw at best, but they'll still end on Detonator and DDD if they draw Ice and Fiendsmith. Like, you're just kind of just boned. They give you a draw, but they still go full combo. Anyways, and I think that's kind of the problem with Purulia is, yes, it does somewhat of a deterrent, but a lot of people just like, okay, I'll give you a draw or two, but I'm still going to do my full combo anyways, and you're still going to have to break through my entire field, right? Number 2 is Mulcharmy Meows is coming out pretty soon as well. And to be fair, in this format, Meows is better than Purulia. And honestly, you can only really play 2 Mulcharmies. Fuwalos is pretty much getting main decked in every deck right now. So that's pretty much a guarantee to be played. And the second Mulcharmy that you want to play, Purulia is getting side decked right now. But with Meows coming in, I feel like Meows will probably be replacing Purulia in the side deck. So just because Meows is probably going to be better in this format than Purulia is. So it's going to be bumping Purulia out of the format. So that's another reason why I don't think it's really worth it. But number 3 is it probably will get reprinted pretty soon as well. We knew Fuwalos will be coming out in a Quarter Century Stampede in April as a reprint. I would not be surprised if they threw Purulia in there as well, especially since Purulia is actually older than Fuwalos, but Fuwalos is getting reprinted. I feel like since they are reprinting Fuwalos, they'll probably be reprinting Purulia in the same set as well. So that's something you should probably be expecting. So the 3 combinations of 1, it's just not as impactful as you want it to be. Number 2, Mulcharmy Meows is probably going to be bumping this out of the format just because Meows is better than Purulia in this format. And number 3, the reprint is coming soon. So, like, those 3 things makes it where I don't think it's worth buying. Now, I still will say this card is really good. I just don't think this is the format for it. So when it gets reprinted, I think you do go for Purulia just so you have copies on you. Since if we do enter a format where Purulia is super good, at least you'll have those copies of Purulia, right? So yeah, those are my thoughts on the card. I hope you guys did enjoy the video. If you did, leave a like and subscribe for more content on the channel, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Goodbye.